What's new, crew? Welcome back to my channel. I recently found a video from KADENS. She went over this blog post about 20 tips from the Great Depression era on how to save money and basically just all their tips and tricks, and that is totally up my alley. That's everything that I love. So when I was watching her video, which I will link down below, I thought, you know what, I have to cover this because I think it's really important. I think there's something so beautiful about what that era taught people, and I think that's something that my generation is definitely missing in just the aspect of using everything and being really mindful. I think life has become too convenient for people. Let's hop into all of these 20 things, and of course with Katie's video I'll link down below the original blog post if you want to give that a read. I would highly recommend. It was actually a really good post. I also want to kind of keep score for myself and figure out what I do and what I don't do, just as an own personal reference, and then you guys can also play along and let me know down below what your number was on how many things that you do. So you'll either have 0 points or all the way up to 20 points if you do all 20 of these things, and let me know what your score is. I'm just curious. So the first one is make your own cleaning products. This is something that I definitely do. I don't talk about it a whole lot over here, but I do have a whole second YouTube channel all about this topic: how to make your own homemade cleaners, testing homemade cleaners, finding out different recipes, and all sorts of those things. I'll link that channel down below if you care. If not, no worries. But yes, this is 100% something I do, and I want to try some new recipes, more extremely homemade recipes, not just mixing together different things from the store. Heading into 2022, I have a couple of ideas for that, so stay tuned. Number 2, make an herb garden. This is something that we are definitely doing. We've had small container herb gardens in the past out on the deck, but this year, don't tell my husband, but our 6-year wedding anniversary is in a couple days, and I got him a dehydrator for our wedding anniversary with like a jerky gun and sausage tubes and all sorts of stuff, so he can make his own jerky and sausage out of his venison, because he bought himself a meat grinder during hunting season so we could process the deer ourselves this year, which went really well. So I wanted to get him that dehydrator so that we could also make our own sausages and stuff and just continue being more self-reliant. And I'm also going to use that dehydrator once we grow all of our herbs this year. I'm hoping to grow a lot of my own herbs and dehydrate them, and then be able to just have my own herbs that I've grown and use them all throughout the year. And I think this would also make really great gifts throughout the year as well. Use just a dab. This is something that I think I do, but how I'm going to categorize this is just using what you need, and that means just using enough lotion, just using enough shampoo, just using enough shaving cream, not having a ton of excess that you don't actually need. I think we've all done that. You put on a little bit of lotion and then you realize you still have too much and you're like, okay, what else do I do with this? Or maybe you've watched little kids wash their hands and they go up to the soap and they go and it's way too much. Just not doing that, just using exactly what you need. And I think I do that. The next one is learn basic sewing. This is something that I actually did while we were stationed out at Fort Drum. Through the FRG, there was a sewing class, and they do this for the lower enlisted, because when you are lower enlisted, you are basically living off of like not even $20,000 a year. It's very, very small. And when your husband or your spouse gets promoted, you have to re-sew on their rank patch and their name tags and all these things. And to go to the tailor at the PX, I think it's like $15 per tag. And when you're replacing 3 or 4 tags, that adds up really quickly. Plus you're doing it on 2 or 3 uniforms, and you're living off of peanuts, and getting a $200 bill from the tailor is something that we could not afford. So I took that class for free, learned basic sewing, and then I was able to remove his patches and re-sew on the new ones when we needed them. So yes, learn basic sewing. There's also YouTube videos and things like that, so I would highly recommend doing that. The next one is grow a garden, and we all know how much I love my garden. We are expanding the garden this year, which I'm very excited about, trying to just grow more and preserve more. But yeah, definitely grow your garden. Even if it's just starting with container gardening, which is basically when you go to the store and you get a pot and you put a plant in it and you grow the plant in the pot. That is a container garden. You can do that anywhere on your back deck. It does not take up a lot of room, and so container gardening can be super effective if you don't have a ton of space. But yeah, just grow a garden, especially if it's just a couple things that you really like. Stick with that. You don't need to be a complete homesteader to have 2 or 3 tomato plants and a bell pepper plant or whatever. Make most of your produce. This is something that I believe in wholeheartedly. If you want to see a couple videos on how I preserve my produce or make them last longer, how I freeze fresh produce so I can use them later, I will link down below a video all about that. But making the most of your produce is really important. Making sure that you're just using it up. Buy the whole chicken. If you have been around my channel at all, you know how passionately I feel about using the whole chicken. Just get the whole chicken. I can feed my family of 5 off of a whole chicken that I can get. Let's be courteous and say that I paid $5 for this whole chicken. I can feed my family for 3 days off of that chicken. Plus, I will be able to make bone broth from the chicken bones off of that and feed my family 1 more time or 2 more times. The next one is buy the bones, which basically just means that buy your meat with the bones in it. The blog is saying that any chef will tell you that the bone-in cut of meat always tastes better. It's harder to dry out, which is all true. This is something that I definitely don't do, and I'll tell you why. My kids are all 6 and under, so when it comes to buying like a bone-in pork chop or a bone-in chicken thigh or something, my kids aren't about it. It kind of freaks them out that the bone is in there. They're kind of wondering why it's there. And it's just harder for them to eat around unless it's like a chicken drumstick or something, right? Being mindful of your electric use, which is something that I wish we were better at. Like I just mentioned, all my kids are 6 and under, and it seems to be a thing in my household where everybody can reach the light switch to turn the lights on, but nobody can reach the light switch when it comes time to turn them off. So I feel like I'm constantly running throughout the house throughout the day, shutting off lights just constantly. Right along with that is being mindful of your water usage. Once again, this is something I wish we were a little bit better at. My kids are still little and learning, and that's just the way it goes. You can always remind them to turn the water off when you're brushing your teeth. You don't need to leave it running the whole time, but I feel like that's what every kid wants to do, is just leave that tap water running. Pay cash. This is something that I definitely started doing, and we're not talking just those big ticket purchases, right? Prime example, over the weekend, we replaced my stove, my fridge, and my dishwasher because all 3 of them started to die for about 60 days. You guys had no idea. Some of you were asking why I wasn't doing cooking videos as much. It's because only half of my stove was working. 2 of the burners just completely died on me, and we were just kind of waiting for our appliances to go on sale because we asked the store where we bought them, and they said that the set that we were interested in was going to be going on sale in like 60 days. So we just opted to wait instead of buying it full price. And then on top of that, the freezer was starting to die on our refrigerator, and we all know that my dishwasher has been broken since August of 2020. So we finally replaced them all. We paid cash for all of these. We didn't put it on credit. We made sure that we had the cash before we bought it. Another thing that I started doing back when the whole world was in shambles, right at the height of the pandemic, my husband got laid off like a lot of people. Luckily for us, his like 9-to-5 job isn't our only source of income. We do have other sources of income that we never talk about on YouTube. We have other investments and other things that we do on the side to make money. And we were able to live really comfortably even with him not having that job. We were able to live within those other areas of income that we have, but it was definitely tighter than what we were used to. So when I was going into a store for something that was necessity, maybe my oldest daughter needed juice boxes for school or something for like a school party, I would go to the bank, I would go to an ATM, and I would pull out however much I knew these juice boxes were going to be. I would pull out $10 out of the ATM. I would go into the store with only my cash, so I was not tempted to buy anything else because I didn't have a card. I had nothing else with me, just this $10, just enough to cover what I actually needed, and then I would leave. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I think the world has been made too convenient for us to just swipe a card and not even think about it, especially if it's credit card. You just swipe it and it's like you think somebody else is gonna pay it or something. It can be tempting when you know you don't have to be responsible for it now. You can be responsible for it later. The next one is learn how to can, which is something I'm still learning. I've definitely made some mistakes. I don't know what I'm doing 100% all the time. Save the scrap. This is something that I'm gonna say we do. We have laying hens, so if we have scraps, they typically just go out to our hens and then they obviously eat it and they return it in really beautiful farm fresh eggs. However, I recently saw that Becky from an ACER Homestead, I will link her channel down below if you are into that sort of thing. And I recently saw in one of her videos where she was explaining how she makes bone broth, she actually saves her onion scraps, her like onion peels, her onion tops, her carrot peels, and she puts them in a gallon freezer Ziploc bag. She freezes all of her scraps and then she just dumps that whole bag into her crock pot with her bones, and that's what she uses to make her stock, which was brilliant. I started doing that because she inspired me to do that. It's such a great way, especially instead of using whole carrots and whole onions that you're just gonna strain out of the bone broth anyways, and then you're probably gonna throw those away, just using the scrap. Making your own gifts. This is something that I'm trying to get better at, but such a great idea. My sister-in-law is awesome at this. She always makes the kids handmade gifts. That's something that's really important to her. So last year for Christmas, she made these really beautiful doll houses for all of the little girls, and then this year she made furniture for the doll houses, and she knits and she knitted little scarves and mittens and hats for the Barbies. Learning how to upcycle furniture, I think this is a huge thing that people started doing. It is all over TikTok and all over Facebook. People are learning how to flip furniture as a side hustle, which I think is super cool, but just learning how to give an old piece of furniture a facelift, a fresh coat of paint, sanding it down, whatever it's taking, just to finish it off and make it look really pretty again instead of throwing it away. The next one is using natural remedies instead of paying for the copay. This is one that I'm definitely not good at. We're really blessed and we have really great insurance. So if something's wrong, we'll usually wait it out for a couple days, and if it's not any better after that, we're just gonna go in. I think most people would probably fall under that, especially with the circumstances that the world is in currently, just going and getting checked out just to play it safe, I guess. But we usually do those natural remedies alongside the modern medicine and things like that, so I don't think I get a point on this one. The next one is, instead of paying somebody else to do it, if you are capable of it, doing it yourself. This is something that me and my husband live for. We've done so many house projects over the course of the last 3 or 4 years we've lived in this home, and I think the only one we've ever paid for was when we paved the driveway, and that's something that we were not capable of doing ourselves. But just over this weekend, we got all new appliances. My husband and I installed all of them. We also put on these handles on our doors, on all of our cabinets, because none of them had handles and it was driving me nuts. We also replaced every single flooring in this house. We put in all the flooring ourselves, all the painting we've done. We did landscaping, we did that ourselves. The next one was don't spend blindly. This is one we definitely do. I always know how much money is in our checking. I don't want to spend any money blindly. I think this is also referring to what I like to refer to as impulse buys. And a huge way I cut out impulse buys is I don't go into stores. But like I mentioned, we have a store that sits in our back pocket every single day, and it's called your iPhone or it's called your computer, because you can just look up any store at any time that you want and you can just fill up your online shopping cart and it arrives at your house. So what I actually did, I was listening to Fit Frugal Mom. She was talking about this, how convenient it is to spend money online. And she mentioned that she just took out all of her credit card information or all of her debit card information off of those saved cards. And now it is much more inconvenient for her to buy things online because she actually has to type in her card information every single time. I thought that was genius, so I did it. I unsaved all of my cards, so now it has already saved me. I'm planning a baby shower currently, and I already ordered everything that I needed offline, and I went, you know what, I'm gonna go back and just do one more shopping spree, just in case, you know what I mean? And I'm scrolling and I filled up my cart with another couple $100 worth of things. Has anybody else ever done that? I can fill up an online shopping cart like nobody's business, just with things that I didn't really need to throw this party. And then I hit the checkout button and I realized that I had to re-put in all my card information. And you know what I did? I backed out of it because I would rather hit the back button than have to fill out a ton more information, because I'm like every other human being on the planet and I'm really lazy. The next thing was using everything to the maximum. Under this one, the blog was talking about basically how tempting it is to keep up with the Joneses and how to just replace things because somebody else did. And trust me, this was a lot harder for me personally when I didn't have the money to keep up with the Joneses. Back way before I did YouTube, my husband was in basic. I was alone, working crazy hours. I was working nights. I was working in a nursing home, and a new RN would come in and flash a new fancy stethoscope, and I'd go, I want one. I want one. Or they'd come in and they've got these brand new work shoes, which were really, really expensive and I could not afford. So I was wearing like an old pair of track shoes that I had because I was 18. It was really hard for me to ignore those things because I wanted them. And I think a huge part of it was, you know, you feel like you want it more because you know you can't have it, and that really sucked at the time. It really, really sucked, but I still didn't go out and buy it just because I wanted it or I felt like I deserved it maybe, or to keep up with somebody. It was hard and it kind of sucked. Like, let's just be honest, it totally sucks when you want something and you can't have it. But now that I've gotten a little bit older, I'm not 18 anymore, those things don't really bother me, not one bit, especially when I know that I'm not spending money on a brand new pair of shoes because I want something bigger and better. Like, your shoes are cool, but guess what? When I saved up enough money because I didn't go out and impulse buy those Hey Dudes, which I really want and everybody in my family has, and they look super comfy and I really want a pair, and I've looked at them online 100 times, and I know exactly what pair I want, and they're sitting in my shopping cart, I'm not going to buy them because spending $50 or $60 on a pair of shoes when I could save that money and have things like my new appliances, have things like finishing off our basement so we can have a really nice area to just relax, finishing our garage and having a big beautiful shop for us to invest time with our kids in, and being able to save money to buy a project car to work on with our kids. Those things are more important to me than the shoes. Does that make sense? The last one was buying things that you can reuse. And I literally just talked about this in one of my latest videos. I will link it down below. I scored a 14 out of 20. I don't think that's half bad. I wish it was a little bit better. At least now I know the areas that I need to work on, right? Thank you guys so much for watching. Like I said, I will have a ton of links down in the description box. This was a really fun video to film, and let me know down below what your score is. Did you do better than me? Did you do worse than me? Where are we at? Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in another video. Bye.